Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch. Welcome today to
Double Zelos.
not just one new Zelos watch to show you, but two. The reason for the double review is that Zelos has a punishing release schedule over the course of 2020. For example, we've already had the Swordfish and Mako 3.
Today I'm going to show you the Abyss 3 and the Hammerhead chronograph. Next month there'll be a dress watch. In April there'll be a Halo model limited release.
In April, May, Horizons 2 GMT and a slightly larger 42mm GMT. In June, there'll be a titanium Swordfish. In July, the Mako 3 in bronze. The second half of 2020 will include a Skyward 2, a Halo Partner 202, Horizon Steel Borderline Diver.
And possibly a driver's watch as well. Now that's a lot of Zelos by anybody's reckoning. I try not to review watches by the same brand more than every couple of months. I don't want this turning into the Zelos channel, which is why I'm going to do two for the price of one today. So two things before we go on today. These watches are enormous. I'm like seriously enormous. Both of them are more than 20mm thick, 2 centimeters thick on your wrist. That means they're going to be too big for a lot of you, I suspect. Too big for me, if I'm being honest. I don't tend to wear watches this size. So these are for the big guys or guys who like to wear big watches. Second thing is, these were sent to me for free by Zelos. I don't have to return them. Now, there are already a bunch of reviews on YouTube of the Abyss 3. I believe Bruce Williams and Federico, amongst others, all received review units. So do be sure to check out their videos if you are interested in this one. I'll talk about the Abyss first, but I want to concentrate on the Hammerhead Chrono today because I believe I'm one of the first YouTubers to get my grubby mitts on that. Let's flip the camera
And get on with it.
Alright, let's start with the Abyss 3 and I'll move on to the Hammerhead Chrono in just a minute. Now, I always compliment Zelos for their overall packaging and the overall package. Nice wooden box, certainly more interesting than your standard bit of cardboard, and I also do appreciate the fact that they give you one of these genuinely useful watch rolls every time you buy a purchase. Now, one thing I don't like is the 1 year warranty that Zelos offer. 1 year warranty in automatics. That is a bit cheap, to be honest. I complain about it every time. Industry standard on autos, certainly across the micro brand spectrum now, is 2 years, and I think it's high time that Zelos doubled that. I do appreciate an extra strap though. They usually either give Horween or a rubber one. Rubber one could be useful in this case, given the enormous weight of the Abyss. In fact, it only just about manages to squeeze into the watch roll. Look at that beast. Now, if you do fancy picking up yourself one of these Abyss 3s, I would suggest doing so within the next 48 hours. Zelos have their own pricing strategy. They do a launch special price currently on this kind of entry-level model, not the meteorites or anything. It's $569 US. That will be going up by approximately $100 on the 1st of March. So if you are keen but you've been dithering around, then get in now before the price goes up. But do be aware of what you're getting, and you're getting a monster. Only 42mm in diameter, but as discussed, over 20mm thick. My calipers measure it at just under 20.5. Now, 51 3/4 lug tip to lug tip, it actually wears alright, but the thickness is not going to suit everybody. 22mm lug width, tapering down to 20, back up to 21.5 at the clasp. Sized up for me, it weighs in at 275 grams. So not only is it super thick, but it weighs a ton as well. Obviously, you can take about 100 grams of that off if you do swap it onto the included rubber strap. And this is a deep diver, 3,000 meters of water resistance. I guess every brand that does dive watches generally has one of these in their range, whether it's the Rolex Deep Sea or that obscene Omega that they released a couple of weeks ago. They're kind of showpieces. The human body cannot withstand anything like 3,000 meters, but this Abyss will certainly keep going longer than you can if you are deep diving. But let's be honest, not many of these are going to go any further than the local swimming pool or possibly down the beach. These are going to be bought by guys who like big, chunky, heavy watches. And if you like a big, chunky, heavy watch, then I think there's a lot of value to be had in this one. Case finishing is very nice throughout, as is typical with Zelos. All very nicely machined. There's a fine horizontal brush on the mid case, chamfered edge, back to brush. And we've got a nice H-link bracelet today. Kind of raised on the edges. You can see the mid links do protrude slightly. Screw link bracelet, I had no problems adjusting this one, and it's the standard Zelos clasp. Now, I will talk about the fact that it's a standard Zelos clasp a little later on. Double security pusher, mill clasp, 4 micro adjusts. Zoomed in on the dial, and this colourway is called the Midnight Blue. You can see quite a pronounced sunburst effect from the dial. Zelos logo printed under the large index at 12. We've got Abyss 3 and that 3,000 metre obscene dive rating printed above the date frame at 6. So 4 o'clock crown today, date window at 6, and it's a Solita 200. Now $5.79 for a watch this thick, chunky and water resistant with a Solita 200 in it is a pretty good deal. I would have almost forgiven them if this one had contained the Seiko NH35, but it doesn't. It's the Solita. Second crown here is a helium escape valve. If you do take this one saturation diving. The glass is obviously a very, very thick piece of double domed sapphire with plenty of anti-reflective undercoating. That big yellow hand there means there's no problem about legibility, and that continues when you switch the lights off. The lume on this Zelos is absolutely outrageous. X1 C3 Superluminova and gobfuls of it all over the place, pumped into the ceramic bezel insert, those applied indices, the big handset, heaps and heaps of lume everywhere. This is a full 20-minute exposure, which is as long as my camera can go, and it's still hanging on in, showing no signs of disappearing even at the end of the 20 minutes. I'll pop a link to show you the screw down stainless steel case back here. It's as thick and as chunky as the rest of the watch is. Zelos Abyss 3,000 meters, picture of a submarine, because let's be honest, that's really the only way you're going to get to 3,000 meters under the sea. Water resistant and 144 out of 150. All of these Zelos are limited and numbered. The Solita 200 is a 26 jewel clone of the ETA 2824, Swiss made auto, 4 Hz, hacking and hand winding, running at 28,800 vibrations per hour. From my experience, I've always found that Solitas run a little fast, coming in somewhere between +5 and +10 seconds per day generally. This one running a little slow at around -10, -12 seconds a day, but healthy amplitude, beat error is looking alright. Great budget choice and a distinct step up from the aforementioned Seiko NH35. But let's get this thing on wrist and look and feel how it wears. And it wears big and top heavy because it is big and top heavy. But like I said, for a lot of guys, this is just your cup of tea. This is the type of watch you go for. Perhaps a little too big for me and my average 7-inch wrist. Legibility is fantastic though because of the size of the handset. It really does stand out against the dark coloured dial, and I believe all the models in the Abyss range are just as legible as this one. But I have a complaint, and my complaint is centred on the bracelet clasp. Now, this is the second Zelos out of the last 3 where I've had an issue with the clasp, and I don't think I'm the only one, judging by some of the other reviews of this Abyss. Now, when I reviewed the Swordfish, I said the clasp was too short, meaning it wasn't providing enough of an aperture when you release the clasp to get the watch on your wrist comfortably. Now, Zelos, in fairness, what they did was they immediately manufactured a new clasp, they made it longer, and they issued one to everybody who had already bought a Swordfish and issued the new elongated clasp with all future orders. It looks to me like what they've done is they've used the very same clasp from the Swordfish on this Abyss, and it just doesn't work with the bracelet. If you look at the head end of the bracelet, if you will, beyond the 12 o'clock, you've got these big chunky links, and then you've got a drop down to a slightly awkward half-size link that fits into the top end of the clasp. That doesn't look particularly good. And if you look at the bottom end, the tail end, everything looks great here when I've got it on the outermost setting. If you pop the clasp open, you'll see what I mean. Very nice here, it just fits in super flush, that is good. But if you utilise those micro adjusts, if you move the bracelet inwards, then you're left with this awkward gap because those big protruding mid-links of the H-link bracelet mean the clasp no longer sits flush to the bracelet, which isn't great and causes an additional problem with the clasp overall. It means that it isn't secure. It doesn't clip down properly at all, and you need that fold over to provide any measure of security. Now, apparently Zelos have recognised the problem, and what they're going to do is they're going to issue new end links. I'm guessing they're going to issue a long flat end link that allows you to access all of those 4 micro adjusts using the same flat end link, meaning that this mid link, the first mid link, always protrudes beyond the end of the clasp. But that's a workaround, which isn't great on a brand new model, and certainly not as the second workaround out of 3 brand new models. So, chunky, well made, well manufactured head of the watch, well manufactured bracelet, but just badly designed designed, and I think pretty good value if you're picking up one of these kind of base units for $569. But I talked in the intro about the pace of release schedule for Zelos over the course of this year. I kind of get the feeling that they're going too quickly. They'd be better slowing down, properly testing all of these, rather than pumping them out to market and then resolving the issues once they hit market. Zelos has got an ardent fan base and they've got a lot of people that are buying these no matter what. So I understand why they're releasing models at such a pace. But this isn't good if they keep releasing them with issues. A fundamental change to the bracelet means they need to fundamentally change the clasp as well, and they haven't, which is a bit of a miss for the Abyss 3. On to the Hammerhead chronograph then, in what I think is a bit of a YouTube exclusive. So exclusive in fact that these aren't currently available to purchase on the Zelos website. My Hammerhead Chrono and Abyss 3 arrived in Sydney about 2 to 3 weeks ago, and I was told by Zelos that these would be going up for sale at the end of February. This is the end of February and they're still not for sale yet. I suspect what's going to happen is that as soon as the Abyss 3 drops off the launch special pricing, these will appear as if by magic. But I have got some exclusive pictures I can show you today of the different model variants. So there is obviously the black and bronze one that I've got. There's also a blue and bronze, a meteorite in bronze, which is something of a Zelos specialty. There's a meteorite in steel, a black in steel and a blue in steel. So it looks like 6 different variants altogether. Now I was told that pricing is in the 800s. I'm assuming that that's going to be $899, and if Zelos pricing structure remains consistent, you're probably going to be paying about 100 or 150 more for the meteorite models, so they'll come in either just under or just over $1,000. I reckon anything less than $1,000 for a watch containing the Valjoux 7750 legendary automatic chronograph movement is a pretty good deal indeed, especially when you consider the use of materials, excellent Zelos build quality and excellent Zelos residual value as well. Now, as discussed, this is a thick and chunky watch coming in at 20mm thick, 2 centimeters thick on the wrist. At least this one's got a bit more of an excuse. Those Valjoux 7750s are thick and chunky movements. However, I think the Hammerhead Chrono wears better than the Abyss 3 because it is wider, 44, so it conceals its girth a little better, and it has a shorter lug to lug at 47. Same 22mm lug width, and on the supplied isoframe rubber strap, this one weighs in at just under 200 grams, so it's still a big, thick and chunky and heavy watch. Make no mistake about that. CU SN8 marine grade bronze case and bezel. Now, don't forget to rotate the bezel if you do buy a bronze watch and get it wet and run it long term. 120 click unidirectional, absolutely solid as a rock, just like the one on the Hammerhead is. So case and bezel made of bronze, but the case back on all of these bronze watches is always stainless steel, less chance of reacting badly to the skin. And you can see the 7750 beating away in the back of it. I'll throw in some macro here. It's a nicely decorated movement, the 7750. Not exactly what you'd call modern, having been first developed in the 1970s, but due to the quartz crisis it got mothballed for a number of years before making a phoenix-like re-emergence in the 1990s. It's gone on to power chronographs from some of the world's best known brands, and it's always a treat to find one in a watch for less than $1,000 US. They're very, very reliable, these, giving great long-term service. A little bit basic, they only wind in one direction, so you do get that Valjoux wobble, but they're dead easy to adjust if you need to time-wise. Not that the Valjoux in the back of the Hammerhead chronograph needs any adjustment at all. Plus 4 seconds per day with a healthy amplitude, minimal beat error, running at 28,800 vibrations per hour, it's 25 joules, it hacks and it hand winds. Back to the front of the watch, and it's got that classic 3-register layout with the small seconds there at 9 o'clock and 30-minute chrono timer at 12, and that's a 12-hour chrono timer down there at 6. Obviously this one's running 1,000 meters of water resistance. I guess that also adds to the thickness here, so we've got a proper dive chrono, screw down pushers on these ones and a screw down crown, obviously giving 1,000 meters of water resistance. This one has been running for some time. One more push of the top pusher to stop it, one push of the bottom pusher to reset it. So it's a mixture of printed and applied. Hammerhead 1000 meters automatic chronograph printed beneath the Zelos logo there at 3 o'clock. You don't get the day-date complication with this one. They've chosen to delete that and just put the logo there instead. I guess that diminishes the practicality a little bit, but it was a stylistic choice made by Zelos. For your information, you still get the ghost wheel at that second position when you pull the crown out. Nicely beveled edged applied indices on the dial around those subdials. The subdials themselves, they've gone for kind of squircles. I would say they're kind of circled off squares or squared off circles depending on your perspective, splitting hairs there. And we've got a two-tone chapter ring with tachymeter markings. The handset is a carryover from the Hammerhead, lateral striations on both of those, and they're big and chunky hands, very in keeping with the style of the watch overall. And there is a bag of lume on those hands. Again, lume is a bit of a Zelos specialty, as you saw with the Abyss. This one uses a mixture of BGW9 and C3 Superluminova for that kind of two-toned effect. Plenty of lume in the ceramic bezel insert as well, and it lasts, and it lasts, and it lasts. Let's get this one on wrist for a look-see. Double domed sapphire crystal covering that textured dial there. Now I do think this one wears better than the Abyss. The fact that it's 75 grams lighter on the isoframe certainly helps, as does the 47mm lug tip to lug tip. But you can see a little bit of protrusion from the case back, so it doesn't sit quite flat, and there's no disguising a thickness of 2 centimeters plus. And again, 44mm affords plenty of space on the dial, plenty of room for a big chunky handset as well. No problems at all with legibility, at a glance readability from this one. So the Hammerhead Chrono comes with typical Zelos 11 out of 10 styling, but it also comes with typical Zelos build quality and machining, and typical Zelos value for money as well. If they can keep this one down south of £1,000, I reckon this will sell out in fairly short order. They haven't done all that many chronographs over the years. This one, the fanboys are going to lap it up, I suspect. So there you have it. Is it indeed one hit and one miss today from Zelos? Let's leave the not inconsiderable dimensions to one side for the moment. You already know whether these watches have any appeal to you based on the diameter, based on the thickness, and based on the fairly chunky weight that both of them come with. I think calling the Abyss 3 a miss based on that clasp would be a little bit harsh. I think the watch offers a very attractive package if you want one of these big chunky deep divers for less than $600 with a Swiss made automatic movement in the back of it. I just wish they'd taken a bit more time and come up with a bespoke clasp just for this watch. Zelos are well known for their customer service. El Shantang, the owner, looks after his customer base. That's why they're so loyal to the brand. But even with a new workaround, it's still going to be a workaround. It's not going to be as nice as if they had machined and engineered a clasp just for this big chunky watch. I think the Hammerhead Chrono though is going to be a winner. I think they're only going to sell 50 of each of those 6 different colorways. I suspect you'll see this one trading at a premium on the Zelos Facebook group and on eBay in the months to come. And there aren't many micro brands you can say that about, are there? Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.